Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi on this Saturday night, 6 o'clock Eastern Time here in the eastern part of the United States. And I know we've got our viewers that are watching from England and Ireland as you experience Beast from the East Part 2 with the cold air that is sweeping westward. And you're going to see some mid-March end of winter snows tonight in some places in southwestern England and on the east shores of Ireland and in a few other places as well. And of course, here in the eastern part of the U.S., we are moving our way through what has been a very nice St. Patrick's Day here in the New York City, Long Island, northern New Jersey, Hudson Valley, southern New England area. But as you went a little bit further south into New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania, there were clouds and even some rain showers down into in parts of Delaware as a little wave goes by to the south. So we are, of course, still looking at this complex weather system that is setting up for the first part of next week. And I'm getting a sense of clarity with the fact that we've got the first of two waves coming along. And we'll go right to it. We're going to bring up the NAM model from late this afternoon, which kind of went went further south. It actually did go further south, matching up with some of the other models that we saw today. We'll bring up the NAM front and center first, and then we'll switch around. A new GFS model is out, so we can take a look at what that's doing. And so here we have the NAM from late this afternoon. The prior runs were bringing the northern shield of snow up north of New York City to about Route 84 and into northern Connecticut. But the new run, and we'll take you through this on the surface map, the new model run is a little bit further to the south with that northern fringe of it. So as we move into Sunday, it looks like some colder air comes in to the northeast. The wind has been a problem today. It has been a bit breezy. It'll probably remain breezy for a while into the first part of Sunday. But now you see that storm that's coming out of the southern plains. Low pressure moves across southern Missouri and into western Tennessee. By the time we get to Monday afternoon, it's going to try to make a run for I think, even though you see that the model just sort of jumps the low around, probably somewhere along the Kentucky-Tennessee border. It'll redevelop in the eastern Carolinas, but you can see the low is sort of tracking out, tries to track out to the east and northeast. And there's the northern fringe of snow, raining just touching the south shore of Long Island to somewhere between Route 78 and 195. Let's say the Turnpike in New Jersey, so south and east of the Turnpike. And snow into southern Pennsylvania. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. And as we move out, that wave goes out, but there's still snow that lingers, and a second wave develops off the Carolina coast. And this has been something we've been talking about, this sort of double wave situation. It's so unusual to see back-to-back waves have impact over in literally a 24-hour time frame. The second wave on the NAM shows up closer to the coast on this one. There's a few things happening in the other upper air that are driving all this. And you know, one of the things that has made this really problematic is the fact that unlike in some other events where you have a clear idea of what's happening in terms of the upper air structure, you have one or two shortwave troughs, and you're looking for whether it phases or doesn't phase. This setup has been especially difficult because there have just been too many moving parts, too many shortwaves at play. You've got this strong upper air storm sitting near Newfoundland that hasn't moved. Basically, it's a block, and it extends its influence all the way back westward toward Hudson Bay and the eastern Great Lakes to Lake Huron. And as a result, anything that comes out to the east is going to get, at least initially, suppressed. That's what happened with the wave that moved through the mid-Atlantic states today. Here's the round for Tuesday. You've got a shortwave trough that's lifting up into West Virginia and Virginia. That's basically weakening. Another shortwave trough back through Kentucky and Tennessee. And then you actually have, and you just coming into the picture here, another shortwave that's dropping down into Minnesota and North Dakota. So when you've got all these pieces in play, it's becomes very difficult as models from run to run key on one versus the other. One is a little stronger, one's a little weaker. Now on this run, at least with respect to a second wave, the NAM actually develops a pretty sharp-looking trough here in the Ohio Valley down into the eastern Gulf states. And you kind of look at this, and if the north were to get out of the way enough, you can envision a low trying to move up the coast just offshore for, say, Wednesday night into Thursday. But again, still too many moving pieces here, and it resolves it this way on this run. It could very well come in with a much weaker, flatter looking upper air on the next run. So we're just going to have to really keep our mind open in a big way. I'll just show you, by the way, how this first area, if you look at the radar, I'll bring up the radar here, and you can look at the first disturbance that's moving through now, getting suppressed by the strong northwest flow and the precipitation that is moving southeast from Maryland off the Delaware coast and offshore, having very little consequence to the weather up in my area, north of 195 and on up into southeastern New York and into southern New England. So let's go back to the GFS now, and we'll take a look. Should be out far enough. And I just want to immediately go to the new GFS with this upper air time frame, which is Wednesday. This is Tuesday evening, so we'll switch off to that and see if the GFS has a similar looking upper air. And you can see it doesn't, but it does have the trough negatively tilted. There's an upper low in Wisconsin here. Look, it really doesn't happen too often where you have such a radical difference between the two models. But this has a much different look from the NAM's view, which I'll bring that back. You can see the jet stream structure on the NAM is much different than what it is on the GFS. And I'll switch back. There you go. So this is actually rather interesting. If there is a second wave, you certainly could argue if this is allowed to lift up northward, that you could bring up a low up the coast. So why don't we examine what the GFS does with the first wave? And I think it's probably not going to be much of a shock. You can see it coming eastward, hits that northwest flow that's up in New England and just sort of weakens and moves off the New Jersey coast with the upper feature. And then here's that upper trough with the second one, but you can't lift. It doesn't, that northern part, the block, doesn't get out of the way enough, so it just basically gets shoved underneath. So I'm thinking it's probably going to try to move it up the coast, but then in reality, it will kick it out. So let's see if that's what it does. So let's switch off to the precip extent. I have not, by the way, made any official snow forecast, or if you want to call my snow forecast an official one. I haven't done anything yet because I'm still kind of waiting here. But there's your first low as it moves off the Virginia coast. Look at that. It can't even get precip much further north than southern New Jersey. And here's the second wave. And of course, if it's not going to lift, but instead get shoved underneath, it's going to take that low out east-northeast. Actually develops it into a fairly strong storm off the Delaware coast, but it's way out as it moves away. So it basically says that we have what could be a non-event. I'm not necessarily buying the overly suppressed look of this model, so I want to be very careful. The SREF and the NAM models are showing much more in the way of snow out of this. So we'll bring up the snow maps just for laughs. Actually, probably better than the snow maps. We'll just put up the precip maps. Snow maps are very deceptive in this particular case because of the time of day and everything else. But notice that the GFS, I'll even go back because this is through the end of the week. And it's going to actually, the way it seems to me, that the models could certainly argue for. You could argue that if everything stays suppressed, this is going to wind up being much ado about nothing. But it can barely bring a few hundredths of precip into southern New Jersey. Most of the heavier precip is down in through Virginia and through the Delmarva Peninsula, in which case it will probably be mostly in the form of rain. The NAM is totally different. By the way, the European today actually looked pretty good, much like the NAM did late this afternoon. But you can see the NAM's precip profile here of producing 1 inch plus liquid amounts from central New Jersey on southward, the leading edge of precip just touching the south shore of Long Island and New York City for a brief time probably. But it does have huge amounts of precip. I don't know that, at this point, I'm just continuing to watch this because, again, because of these moving parts, there's plenty of time. I think maybe by later tomorrow we'll get some overall clarity on this, and maybe at the end it will wind up being suppressed. But I'm not completely sold on that scenario as of yet. Let's go to Europe and take a look at what's going on over there, because we've got a blast of cold air that is moving into Siberia, not as severe as what we had a couple of weeks ago. This is not going to be producing widespread blizzards, but it is going to be producing some snow. And I'll put up the surface map. And there's your high sitting over Norway and Sweden for this evening. Notice snow, the GFS model generating snow over a good portion of England and Wales and into the eastern shores of Ireland, and an east-west band of snow that goes from western France all the way eastward into Eastern Europe and into Russia. Those easterly winds with that high, you're getting all this air from Siberia being pushed back westward. And as we go through the overnight and during the day on Sunday, snows into Sunday morning, gradually diminishing, and you have actually a little wave of, actually a little low develops in the English Channel there, and then drops southward. Unlike what happened with the blizzard, where we actually had a low develop east of Portugal and move right off the coast of Europe and into the English Channel, pushing some very heavy precip into Ireland and England. This time around, that low center is actually starting in the English Channel and dropping southward and then turning eastward into the Mediterranean, bringing snows even down into southern France and northern Spain. And looks like a pretty strong little low there moving through the Mediterranean Sea with the snows eventually in through the interior of Italy. That's a fairly tight little gale center that develops there. Going to keep an eye on this. Might be something else for me to learn how to handle with the watching the European weather evolve. But at least from the standpoint of the cold, it'll play itself out in the next couple of days, and then temperatures will start to moderate as we move through next week across Europe and across the UK and Ireland to something resembling the end of March. So, pretty much in summary, and what I'm thinking here, I'm leaving the door wide open to some more changes on the models. I'll wait till tomorrow to think about a snow map. This has been a very, very frustrating period here. She Gadget is with us tonight from Surrey in South England. We had amber warnings, nothing more than a light dusting of snow so far. This is not as impressive as the last push. Always smiling. Also here, hope everything is going well. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I just hope it's gone by the morning, but I doubt it will be. The hail, you're getting sleet there. Wow. That's or grapple, perhaps. He said it's as big as a marble. It's probably grapple, which is kind of I guess the best way to describe it is a snowflake that hasn't completely crystallized. So it has an icy texture to it. Let's see. Austin Figueroa, a sharp cutoff with the storm snow total. Absolutely. There will be a sharp cutoff. That northern fringe is going to go from 0 to a few inches to 4 or more over a matter of miles. And I think the question of whether the cutoff is north of New York City or south of New York City, judging from what I've seen all afternoon, I have to kind of lean to the idea that this is going to wind up being more south than anything else. Jason Schaefer, have to wonder if these waves are going to rob one another of energy. But Jason, there's too many players. There's just too many short waves running around, all interacting with this big blocking low in Newfoundland, and it makes things so incredibly problematic because you don't know from run to run which is the primary player, which is the secondary player. Is the block too strong? Are models underdoing it? In which case, these weather systems will be much more suppressed. Or, is the block going to pull out enough to allow for some room? I'm leaning against that idea now, based on the fact that we're at Saturday evening. If we were going to see some evidence of the block weakening, I think we would have started to see that by now. And mid-cycle runs do tend to be a bit wonky. That's true, but on the other hand, you have to respect the trends that are there, and sometimes the mid-cycle runs are very useful because they can give you clues about what might be changing. Looking like 2 misses at this point. You know what? I'm going to lean against. Maybe the next model run will embarrass that embarrass me on that, but I'm starting to lean against this. This is just not looking to be anything for my area and for areas north of New York City. It certainly could still be something of consequence south, and because of the time of year, remember if it snows, it's got to snow hard enough to stick during the daytime because of the sun angle. We're now this is going to be the first day of spring. The sun is as strong on the first day of spring. The sun angle is the same as it is roughly as it is on the first day of autumn. So you're getting the same strength of mid-March, mid-September in terms of the sun angle. So if it snows at night, obviously there's no sun angle issue at night, although sometimes I wonder if some people really believe that. But the fact is that it's a little tougher to forecast snow amounts this time of year because of the other factors that you have to put into play. But if it does snow hard enough and temperatures are down near or just slightly below freezing, it does accumulate even in the daytime. 2 questions from David Schwartz. Do you believe the indices that the NAO finally goes back positive and fairly strong starting the 23rd? And how big is that corned beef you're cooking for 10 hours? I actually didn't make corned beef today. We're having chicken scallopini. Yes, we're having chicken scallopini tonight. So we opted out of the corned beef. Too salty and too fatty. But I'll go after Sunday or Monday. They'll probably have it on sale, and I'll get some. How's Western Russia going to be this week? Joshua Penn, you're going to Western Russia? Let me see. I'll give it a look off screen. Where in Western Russia are you going? You going to Moscow or? So actually, my cousin is going to be in Moscow this week. Doesn't look like anything unusual going on from what I can see. I'm not that familiar with the climate. I mean, the general idea of what the climate is like there, I do understand, but I'm not overly familiar with how things work. Yes, Jason, my inner Italian broke through. Usually it's corned beef on a bed of lasagna. Seafarer, is the Weather Channel a reliable source for getting an idea of what it will be like in Orlando? Why don't you instead go to weather.gov and click on the map down in the Central Florida area and check the Weather Service forecast for that area. Do it that way. I think that'll probably be a bit better for you. All right, folks, going to call it a night here at this point. May sneak on a Facebook Live later this evening, so you can join me there on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Cioffi. And there are, of course, website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. Those of you who are new, welcome to my YouTube channel. Do subscribe and set your notifications. We do these live streams at least once a day, usually during the week at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. And on the weekend, the times tend to vary, although I try to always schedule it on the banner across my YouTube channel pages to what time a live stream is going to be going on. Have a great evening, folks. So we'll probably see you sometime tomorrow. We'll pop back on and update the weather situation.